I wish I could just get those wedding day feelings back. I wish I could get those dating feelings back. Like, no, you sent me like a 6 minute, I still have it on my phone, a 6 minute voice prayer and scripture. And I just remember like, that was like the best thing anybody could do for me. And that's the funny part about it, is that we lived 4 blocks from each other, worked out at the same gym, like so many cross situations that God was just like, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet.
Yeah.
All right, podcast fam, Graham fam, all the fam. Here we are, finally doing this episode, sharing about who you are, our story. Though I said earlier, I was like, you have your story, I have my story, and we have our story.
Correct.
Okay. And then hopefully we'll get to some questions. But this has been the most requested podcast out of all the things. When I'm like, what do you guys want? What do you want to hear? People are like, how did you meet? Tell us about your dating journey.
Which was nothing. Just answering that now.
Yeah.
There was no dating.
So it's a very unique situation and story, but it's amazing. So, but first, because people ask me about you all the time, and I'm not out here giving your biography. So, baby, who are you?
Where do you want me to start?
I'm thinking birth on. No, okay, but
Gosh.
just in general, just give like the, obviously you haven't lived here forever. When did you come here? Just give the like brief and amazing little nutshell. When did you give your life to Jesus?
My 2-minute story.
Yeah, give your 2-minute story. Ready, go.
All right. So I grew up down in Southern California, in Anaheim, to be exact, and didn't kind of know what I was going to do after high school. Tried to go to school to be a massage therapist, believe it or not. Did a whole senior project on that, and that wasn't going well. I couldn't get in. Dad wouldn't go sign loans or anything for me at that time. I wasn't the best kid at the time either, so understandably, went down a bad path. And it was New Year's Eve, going into New Year's Day, obviously, of 06 to 07.
Mm-hmm.
Had already been out of high school and got into some little trouble that night. Not with the law or anything, just with friends and myself. And that was like the last straw for me.
Yeah.
Where I was like, all right, I'm going to the military, and was in the recruiter's office within days, because obviously they're closed for New Year's and stuff. And ended up leaving in March of 07, and then joined, was security forces, or a cop as everybody will know it, or military police. Got to travel a little bit, started in Vegas, over to Korea, Germany, and then ended up at Travis as my last base. Did 10.5 years, few deployments here and there. And when I got to Travis, I knew I was going to separate eventually, especially with how things were changing in the military.
Mm-hmm.
But I fell in love with the area. So I got here in 2012 is when I finally got stationed here, and absolutely loved the area compared to Anaheim, where you got big city life, traffic, hustle and bustle. And obviously now things have changed here where we're kind of getting to that point. But initially, I loved that small town feel that Vacaville had.
Yeah.
So stayed here and didn't want to go anywhere else. Got into real estate after that, and quickly found out that that wasn't the job for me either, while going to school for my bachelor's and then eventually my MBA as well while doing that. And then after that, I kind of worked some odd jobs here and there, doing sales, security, obviously what I knew best, and I thought about going back into the police world. But with my daughter, I was like, I can't do that to myself or do that to her. So ended up back in the sales roles again, and didn't like the 9 to 5 where I had to have a boss, because after 10.5 years of being in the military and somebody telling me every single day what to do, wasn't my jam. And that's how I ended up now where I'm at in the financial space. Yeah. So that's my story in a nutshell for you guys.
Okay. So, but then you have to rewind a little bit. You have a daughter. So
Right.
like talk about a little bit about that. So obviously you were married before, you have a daughter, just like the brief about that.
Yeah. So when I was stationed in Vegas, met my daughter's mom, and was young and dumb. They tell you, my military folks are going to relate to this.
young
But
and dumb.
they tell you don't go to your first base and go get married just so you can live off base and get higher pay because you get paid the BH and everything.
Yeah.
And what did this guy do? Exactly that. So, but obviously a blessing.
Yeah.
I had my daughter out of that marriage. That only lasted a year.
Yeah.
I found out she cheated on me right before I left for Iraq. And she told me, so I forgave her. I was like, all right, you were honest with me.
Yeah.
Kind of let it go. But then when I was deployed, a lot more happened. Came home. There was domestic violence where she put her hands on me, and I was like, all right, I'm calling the cops, and walked out. So no, I wasn't the aggressor in that.
Mhm.
I knew from childhood of seeing that on the regular. Well, I was like, I won't be that man.
Mhm.
And so then that ended that relationship. And from there, that's when I got stationed in Germany, moved around. When I got to Travis, spent some time here by myself, kind of dating, and then met my now ex. So been married twice.
Mhm.
And then we were together for 5 years, but that just relationship dwindled to where, I wasn't being the man that I am now.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of that is what led to the relationship and obviously the other side too, with things there.
Mhm.
But then also a blessing because here we are.
And here I am that I was like, I will never be someone's third wife, third wife, ever, ever.
Third time's a charm.
Okay. So, but going back to that a little bit, you would say, obviously, in all of those times, you were not living as a masculine biblical man, and
No,
was
not at
your
all.
marriage a godly marriage?
No,
Right.
not at all. Growing up, we went to church. I
Yeah.
grew up in a Catholic household. We'd go to church. We were the CEOs, Christmas, Easter, and on occasion.
Yeah.
And like baptisms and everything like that. But
Yeah.
outside of that, we didn't really go to church. I know my dad and my godparents wanted me to take catechism classes while I was in high school. And I remember going in to have to take this test. And it was about like the Lord's Prayer and all these different things. And at the time, I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And it was in Spanish too. Like,
Yeah.
I can read it, write it, speak the language.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know what it's saying to translate. Like, it
Yeah.
was kind of different. So
Yeah.
I was like, no, I failed on purpose because baseball at the time was more important to me.
Yeah.
And it was going to take time away from that, from school and everything.
Yeah.
So did that. My mom started going to Calvary Chapel, Chino Valley, and we started going there. Had some church hurt there too with like youth group, not feeling welcomed and everything. So didn't really do anything back to basic training,
Yeah.
which again, military folks will can relate to this, where on Sundays you went to church
Mhm.
just so you can escape everything else because that's the only time you were left alone. But at the same time, like I felt the presence of God there. Like
Mhm.
some of the songs that they sang and everything, like would definitely feel that, but it still wasn't like
Yeah.
dedicated to it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got to Travis where I actually found the Father's house when they were back on Peabody.
Yeah.
And they actually worked with it. I was able to attend at night. And I can't remember if it was a Saturday or Sunday night service that they had. But my daughter and I had worked 12-hour shifts, so we'd get off work and make sure that we'd go to that.
Yeah.
And even with that, I began still here and there. And I didn't get baptized finally until 22. Yeah. February 22.
Mhm.
And that's because of a relationship that I was in led me to a therapist, and I found out I was a codependent. And she was like, "Hey, I'm going to give you this book," and she's like, "But it had like Bible verses in it." And I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I'm a Christian. Like, I'm good with that."
Yeah.
Really learned a lot about who I was, and then found out I couldn't do life alone. So I was like, I have to get baptized. Like, I
Yeah.
have to give my life to God.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that I'm going to do this. And rewinding to that as well, as in 2018, after I separated from the military,
Mhm.
I almost took my life. I haven't talked about this in a while, so it hits. But I wanted to end my life. I didn't have purpose. I didn't know where I was going. And God spoke to me that day and he said, I need you for veterans and kids. So that's been my passion. That's been where I've tried to pursue things and why the real estate thing stuck. And now, obviously with the financial services that I'm in, like I want to give back to our veterans and give back to the community as much as possible.
Yeah.
So that really drove me. I was like, I can't, there's no way. I tried to do life alone for how many years now?
Yeah.
Gave my life to Christ. And then even after that, getting into small groups and stuff, like there was church hurts, and we've talked about this where I was like, I didn't want to be at this church.
Mhm.
And that's when I really picked up on that masculinity side.
Mhm.
And thankfully went to a different church, and obviously God led me there
Mhm.
in town, and they happen to have a sermon not only about femininity from the woman's side, but also for the masculine side. He had a day about men, and I was like, this is exactly what I want.
Yeah.
And then shortly after that is when we started talking.
Yeah.
And this discovered even further into
Yeah.
what it is that we want to do.
Yeah.
So
Which is what our whole first conversations were based around, was masculinity and femininity,
Yeah.
and which we'll get into all of that.
yes, yes.
But also, this is one of the things I love so much about you, is your vulnerability. And I don't feel like it would be fair to people listening to not share you. I don't want to share you at all, actually.
No, I
But
like that. No. I don't share well either.
yeah, but you know what I mean?
Yes, for sure.
And that I feel like, especially because the things we're going to talk about, people need to understand. They know me, they know about my traumas, and that I was married before, and and the betrayals I've been through, and they'd be watching my life like a reality show.
For sure.
Y'all do.
Yes.
So,
and I've seen it.
Yeah. So, which is fine. But I'm like, that's where obviously we believe and we know that we have authority and anointing in
Right.
the things that we overcome. And we're not just here going to talk about our story and masculinity and femininity and Jesus without people understanding that we've had traumas and failures and losses, and we've experienced things that led us to the place that we are. There has been mistakes made. There has been things that we would love to have done differently, but
Right.
yet we're using them to try to help other people.
Yeah.
And so that's why I thought it was so important for you to just share those things, because you have walked through some fires and have had your own journey, and we both did our own work before being together. And I think that's such a huge deal, as we weren't going from one thing to the next thing and then just
I
like,
thought I wasn't after that marriage. My second one, I was like, never again.
yeah,
Like never again. I didn't have that thought in my mind.
Yeah.
That I was going to get married again.
Yeah.
Like, but obviously, we're called to be married. We're called to multiply.
Yeah.
And God changed my heart completely on that
Yeah.
to lead us here to this. So
Yeah. So I'm so grateful for all of that. Some of it I don't really like,
of course.
too. But
yeah, it's my past though. That's
but
what made me the man that I am now, to be here for you.
for sure. So with that, I just am grateful, and I want to be able to share that side of you, because that's one of the things I love so much about you, is your transparency and your vulnerability. And you don't try to act like, oh, I've just always had it together, I've always been this blah blah blah. And yeah. And also on my side, which we can talk about this in another episode, where people ask me, like, obviously women, like, I've been a Christian my whole life. I lived this certain way. I was married for 20 years, and where I have other conversations with single women that are like, oh, well, I want this, and I'd only be with someone that doesn't have all of these things, or that has been in church their whole life. And obviously that's dumb, because they could be missing out, because you're the best thing ever.
Thank you.
And so,
But I also, that can be age dependent, I think.
sure.
The younger you are, yeah, you probably can have a higher standard because people haven't
Sure.
really lived life.
Yeah.
But I think as you get older,
Yeah.
you have to kind of obviously hold still true to your standards.
Right.
But at the same time, people have lived.
Yeah.
And you have to see past that and be like, okay, if they're still living in that, then that's different.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how we met. Can I share?
of course you can.
Okay. So
I'm gonna start back from when I came into the store and you
Yeah.
didn't know it was me though.
yeah,
when
So
the van was
I'm gonna go all the way back. So I'm gonna go back to this vague memory. He has a way. I have a crazy memory, like a photo memory. I can remember things from, but no, this one thing I can't remember the details
what I tell you last night when we were talking about
that
it.
God had blinded my eyes
Yeah,
and
because I
protected
wasn't
my
ready
heart.
at that time.
Because yeah, so he wasn't ready. And so yeah, so he comes into the store, into my business to talk to me about these drinks that he was selling, and I basically walk him over to the fridge and I'm like, no, we sell raw milk and we don't sell plant-based things.
Yeah,
But
you're
he
like,
said
my
that was nice. I was worried that maybe I was.
no, she was super nice about it. She was like, no, unfortunately, my clients,
Yeah.
they wouldn't buy that. We
Yeah.
have all the raw dairy and everything else. And I was like, all right, no worries.
Yeah.
I just doing my job. So I went
Yeah.
out the door I went.
And at that time, he wasn't a raw milk man.
No.
So because that would have then, God was like, no, you can't see him and he can't be drinking raw milk yet, because that would have just led to a clue, because the running joke was always like, God's just going to send some raw milkman into your store. And, that kind of is what happened, but not that time.
No.
So then the next time you were in, I wasn't in.
Right.
And you were talking to Mika and maybe Nancy.
Yeah, both of them were in.
Yeah. And you're looking for jalapeno
raw cheese.
Raw cheese.
Yeah. Wanted some jalapeno raw cheese for some burgers.
Yeah. And so, and yeah.
I still haven't had, and we need to
we do.
somehow to
We
get
did
that.
have that one, but it wasn't Organic Pastures brand.
Yeah.
It was a different brand. So, which most of our conversation in life revolves around food.
Yes.
So you guys are talking, Mika tells me about you, and initially I was like, oh, he is trying to get with Mika because all these things. And you're like, no, it was just this. She was single mom trying to move. And so
can we add context to
you
that, though?
can.
Okay. Because that does sound obviously that way.
Yeah, it does, but it's not. It's part of the story.
Yeah. So I went in there, I was working for Grand Canyon University, and just happened to walk in and we started talking about military life. Nancy obviously being retired military as well. And then Mika's brother was about to separate.
Yeah.
And back to the point of wanting to help veterans, I was like, hey, if there's anything I can do for your brother, let me know. Like, we exchanged numbers. And she was like, yeah, I'll reach out to him, let you know. About 2 weeks go by, something along the lines. And I was like, I reached out to her and I was like, hey, haven't heard anything from you. Like, what's up with your brother? Anything? She's like, oh, he's busy. He's been moving, blah, blah.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm also about to move. And I was like, do you need help? Like,
yeah.
Offered to help. I know what it's like. I had to move so many times by myself. And as a single dad, like, I get it of having to move. So as a single mom, especially with littles, I was like, yo, can I help you?
Yeah.
Whatever. And even to that day, when I eventually help her move.
Yeah.
She's like, you don't want anything from me? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Like, I legit just wanted to help.
Right.
Like, I think as men, we should be offering that kind of help to women, and especially single moms. Like, I think we need to.
Yeah.
Like, we need to step up in society and do that. So
for sure.
That's the context behind that. Just
hold on.
Because it leaves it open and everybody's gonna be like,
okay,
so.
For sure. But that's where, but then you also had a little situation in your life before that, and you came into the shop in DDD, and so I thought that you were potentially in a relationship, or this assumption that I had. And so anyways, it doesn't matter. You followed me on social media. I followed you on social media. And then I was like, what the heck? We follow all the same things.
I slid in under DMs.
Yeah.
And I said that at the wedding too.
You did. And so I think the first time we talked, I had posted something like, oh, where can I find a massage?
Right. Because your girl was going out for a little while.
Yeah, because she was on maternity leave.
And I had said that the spa, Hotel Winners, had a little spa there.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I left it at that.
Yeah.
And then I think it was that same night that. Or was it a few days before that? Yeah.
Because remember, there was a progressive. So there's this progressive conversation where then you were like, oh, because I was like, oh, we post a lot of the same content. We follow a lot of the same pages. And then you were starting men's.
Oh, you heard that from Mika.
Yes. And Mika was like, oh yeah, he's starting this men's group. Yeah. And then I had a guy friend, remember, that he was a single dad that was looking for a group.
Right.
And so then this is when it gets good. So then you would tell me about the group. And then remember, we even had a whole conversation around this group that you were like, yeah, maybe sometime you can come to the group and talk about femininity and DDD and speak to the men. And then at some point I say, and this is voice DMs, by the way, this is not typing.
Hold on, before you get there.
Okay.
There was so much going back and forth. I legit grabbed paper out and had to take notes on how to respond back to her questions.
True.
And to this day, we still have that piece of paper.
Oh, we do.
Okay.
Okay, but that was before, because I have with my photo memory, I was getting ready to go somewhere and it was daytime. And I was like, and I remember texting some of my friends and I was like, I'm gonna risk it. I'm gonna just text him and be like, hey, since you have this masculinity group, if you know any godly masculine single men, send them my way. So this is the drop. This is the drop thing that he missed out on.
Completely.
Okay,
missed.
like entirely misses it because he says back
I can't.
to me, yeah, I will. And if you know any women,
Send them my way.
send them my way. And I must have been like this on my phone. I was like, audacity.
Over the head.
He literally did not put it together. And so then I just was like, wow. Wow. So then I really was like, oh, he's still into his ex-girlfriend, or
Yeah.
he's into this or something, because why would he do this?
Oh, just didn't pick it up.
Yeah.
Just
So the whole drop the hanky thing, which I've talked about before, back in the day, it would be like if you were walking past a man and you wanted his attention, because women, we don't pursue men. And so you drop the hanky, so then they get it, and the power is now in their hands to give it back to you and then be like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
So that's the idea.
Well, that's not how it worked out.
No, it's
Initially.
sure not.
Initially.
Which I could have just shut that whole thing down from there.
There is one person I have to thank for that.
Yeah, it's true.
So thank you, bud.
It's true. So then we end up still talking, and this is for hours and hours and hours. We just talk about like church and God and like being married. I think we talked about every freaking topic that there possibly. Yeah.
You kept going back and forth.
And so we're voice texting all the things on and on and on and on.
On Instagram still.
On Instagram still. And I had a meeting the next day. No, days
No,
later.
I had the meeting the next day.
But I had a meeting in the morning with the boys because you sent me Miles Minnick and said, oh, you should put this on the playlist for them.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, this is prior. Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I thought we were at that day.
yeah.
No.
Yeah. So then, yeah, there's just was so many conversations, and I did feel, and I did end up screen recording some of our message.
This is the first that I've heard of this. Thanks. Surprise.
Because I was on the phone with Jen and Stacy. They were like, text me, like, where are you? Like, because I usually text back fast. And they're like, what are you doing? Like, why are you not texting? I'm like, I'm actually talking to this guy and la la la. And like, so then I like sent like just like a 30-second, you know, like, because they were like, how long could you be on there for?
Yeah.
So anyways, and then yeah, that's basically how we met and how it all started. And then done.
Yeah. And leading up to that, that's how it all went. And then obviously that night, we didn't know. Especially obviously on my side, it got to midnight, and I was like, "Oh crap, I gotta go.
Yeah,
I have a meeting in the morning. I was supposed to drive to San Francisco for work."
Yeah.
So we end the conversation. I am driving into work, and I get a call from another friend about something tragic, and I call my boss, and I was like, "Hey, I can't come in. I couldn't sit across people to try to do any kind of business and work." So I went back home. And in that time, I get a phone call from a number that I don't know with the name that I was like,
wait, but how you gave me your phone number?
Yeah, we exchanged numbers. So I was like, can we just get off of this?
Yeah. Yeah. 10,000 voice texts later.
Yeah. It just, so I get the phone call from your number and I was like, I don't know who this is. And then you left a voicemail.
Yeah.
Just saying, hey, give me a call when you get a chance.
Yeah.
And I did call them. But leading to that, what were you doing? Because you didn't want to call me.
I didn't want to call you.
Yeah. You're like, why am I going to call this guy that I don't even know?
Yeah. I'm just like, which going back to our conversations, like all of those times, whether when I was in Winters, because we did voice text when I was in Winters.
Yeah.
And so, because I think I posted I was there,
Yeah.
and you were like, "Oh yeah, there's a place there." So like all of our conversations, they were so easy
Right.
and felt like we were super connected and like all of those things. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is amazing," you know? And I felt safe and like just all of the things. And so obviously that night I didn't know what had happened yet.
Right.
And you know, like all I can say when people ask me about it is because I was sitting right over there on the deck when I was texting you, and then I went on a walk when I walked
Right.
Max.
Which doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, when I was
Late night walks
no,
by
no.
yourself.
And so I was out late walking the dog, texting you, and then I had a feeling, like I had this weird feeling, like, you know, when you have an 18-year-old, they come and go. They kind of do whatever as long as they follow their curfew. It wasn't out of the ordinary. And I had
Right.
just talked to him, you know, and was just here eating dinner. And so it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. But I do remember having a feeling. It was like I was in the middle of talking to you on the deck, and I went like, like, there's no, that was weird. You know,
Yeah.
like I just had this weird feeling, but it wasn't anything beyond that until way later when I was like, okay, what the heck
Right.
is going on here? So, but with that in the morning, I just had this strong sense that I should call you and I should tell you. And I was really fighting that. And when you didn't answer, I was like, see?
See? See,
And
God, he didn't answer.
yeah, I was like, okay, see, it doesn't matter. Moving on with my life, you know, it's okay. And I was sitting actually in my car at that time and just like talking to God and was like, why am I calling him to talk to him about this? Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, he didn't answer. See, doesn't matter. Moving on. And, but then you ended up calling me back.
Yeah, because you left a voicemail.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think I would have, because I didn't know. I don't
Yeah.
call people back unless there's a voicemail. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a number that I know. So yeah, I did, and he told me, and we kind of discussed the other event too, because you knew that person
Yeah.
as well briefly.
Yeah.
And in that, I didn't know what to say. Didn't know what to do other than like, hey, if you need me, like whatever you need, I got you.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I think having that kind of relationship with Mika being built too,
Yeah.
and seeing the meal train and everything, like, I was able to squeeze my way in that way too. Which, but I was like, why are we starting this later? Like, because it wasn't, the meal train wasn't until like the following week
Yeah.
after. So I was like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why are we waiting?
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up bringing that meal. I told Mika, I was like, I'm just gonna bring it Saturday night. And that's when
Yeah.
I want to choose you.
And then, so even with that, which was sad and special, is that you were the first person to bring a meal, because all those other days I just was like, no, no, no.
Right.
And like, that's why Mika was like, okay, we'll hold off and, you know,
Yeah.
like whatever. And I wasn't really eating. That was the first meal I ate since Tuesday. Seems crazy because I'll be eating food.
We nonstop eat now. Like, that's all we do. I need a snack. I need a treat. I need a snack.
Literally. And so, yeah. So, but it wasn't just that you were the first person to bring the meal. It was the meal that you brought that I literally was like, are you freaking kidding me?
But that's the thing. Like, I didn't, and I had no idea.
Yeah.
None. I just,
Yeah.
that's what I like to eat,
Yeah.
and I like to cook it.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, like this is.
I just
And
was
knowing
like,
the way you ate.
marry me immediately.
Knowing the way you ate, I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's the whole
obviously,
thing.
yeah, through
Yeah.
conversation, I picked up on that, and I was like, okay, I can do this,
Yeah.
this, and this.
Yeah.
And we're good.
Yeah. So you end up making Noah's favorite meal, which was steak and potatoes.
Yep.
And
Tri-tip.
tri-tip specifically.
Tri-tip, zucchini,
Yeah.
and potatoes.
Yeah.
Mashed potatoes.
Which
All
best
with-
tri-tip ever. No tri-tip compares. I live for weekly tri-tip made by you.
There's actually one in the freezer too that I bought on
Oh,
Monday.
yes.
So we could have some.
So that I just was like, hold on a second. And then let's also go back to the fact, we won't go into the whole dream, but like I had this dream and about this man that I was married to who looked just like you. And so that was a whole thing too. And so I was like, okay, what are the odds that you look just like this man in my dream?
Yeah.
And then the connection to the name in the dream, and then the meal that you brought. And then there's just like all these things. But then I obviously, in tragedy and trauma, I went into self-protection mode.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and I just was like, no. And like, there's just a lot there with that. And it was too that I was like, why is this fair to you? Like, why am I going to bring you into this?
Yeah.
Like, you can go live your life and not be brought into the worst tragedy, trauma ever.
But then again, that same person that told you to give me a chance
Yeah.
was like, if he's gonna be there,
Yeah.
then let him be there.
It's true.
So
Yeah. Cause then I'm talking to our friend and he's like, hey, how are you? What do you need? What do you need to happen? Da, da, da. He's telling me like, and he did give me one of my best advice where he was like, as long as you aren't idle and you don't isolate, you're going to make it. Like, just don't be idle and don't isolate. And I'm like, okay, I think I could do that. And then I was like, hey, but I have this situation with this man and I don't really know what to do. Do I let him be here? Do
Right.
I like, what am I supposed to do? That isn't fair to him. And then I don't know. And there's just so much happening and like, it's the worst timing. And then everyone's like, and then I had the grief counselor and she's like, can't you see this as God's timing and the best timing? And like, are you trying to like push away God's gift? And then I was like, I don't know. And I don't know what to do. And then he's like, why don't you do this? Why don't you see what he does, not what he says, like over the next week or so? And
Right.
that will tell you everything that you need to know. And I felt like that sounded reasonable. Like,
Oh, for sure.
I
I
could do
know
that,
that.
right?
Definitely reasonable.
I could see what he does.
Yeah.
And then also, I want to go back to the day that happened. You sent me like a 6 minute, I still have it on my phone, a 6 minute voice prayer and scripture. And I just remember like, that was like the best thing anybody could do for me.
Yeah. Well, and thank you to Mika again. She
Yeah.
had gave me that idea. Like, we always say that we're gonna pray for somebody,
Right.
but she's like, why not do it? Like, we have access to our phone
Yeah.
to do that now.
Right.
So in that moment,
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I really don't. I feel like I shouldn't say I don't pray because I do pray, but I do. But I don't feel like I'm a prayer warrior. There's
Yeah.
people that have
Yeah.
that gifting for sure.
Yeah.
But that day, the words spoken, I was like, man, this is like one of my best prayers that I've prayed.
God's like, listen, we're gonna need to come through today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I was like, I feel confident sending this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So there was just all those little things. And then also when Matt's like, hey, tell me a little bit about him.
That's his name, by the way, Matt, our friend.
Yeah.
We've been, I didn't know if we were getting
That's
send
fine.
his
Yeah,
name. So
that's fine. He wouldn't care. So, and then I like told him like, oh, he was in the military. There's this. And he was like, listen, if anybody can handle some type of tragedy and details, I'm sure he can, like,
and obviously showing my story and what I walked through.
Yeah.
Definitely led me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because with my own wanting to take my own life and the stuff that I've walked through, I think for sure it gives me that. And this is a question I know that was on the paper from before.
I forgot to grab that paper.
It's all right. But I know for sure this was a question of like, how do you know what to say? How do you know what to do?
Yeah.
And honestly, I never did. I never, to this day, I still don't.
Yeah.
I take it as the time comes. And a lot of the times I don't say anything. I just sit there and I hold space for you to be able to go through that moment and that time frame.
Yeah.
And even yesterday, as we were talking about coming back from Placerville, we read our devotionals, our Bible every morning. And yesterday, after leaving there, or before leaving there, you walked away. And typically you don't walk away from me like ever. But I knew, because even during the reading time, like you started crying and everything. So I knew, obviously, this is a difficult situation. We both know. And you walking away, I was like, this isn't meant for me to do anything. So I knew I needed to give you the space to feel what you needed to feel. And I just took care of everything else.
Yeah.
So it's in the moments that whatever God speaks to me is like, hold her, say something, do whatever, don't do anything, let her be.
Yeah.
It's really how I take it because I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. It's not me.
Yeah.
And it's definitely the things that I've walked through in my life to be able to recognize who you are, because I see you on a daily and I see who you are and I see your presence, to know like, okay, this is not my moment. let her be.
Mhm.
And then obviously at the end of the day, our reconnection is back to normal. Like we have such a huge connection that no matter what it is, and that we don't strive for distance, we strive
Yeah.
for connection at every moment. Even in
For
that
sure.
moment, I know we're still connected.
Yeah.
We're still good. There's still emotional connection. Everything is still there. Even with me like giving you that space, it's like, okay, I can go do this.
Yeah.
But I know we're good
Yeah.
because of that. So,
Yeah. For sure. But I think the difference is too, like all through the journey of the months and months and months, because obviously we built trust and built connection and built routines, and you were around, and within gosh a month of everything happening, you're like, let me make dinner for all your friends and people that were here from out of state, and which is also kind of crazy because you got to meet everybody right away because there was no other choice.
well, and we talked about that before, that
Yeah.
that's also the gift,
Yeah.
because otherwise, like your friends are like, oh, who is he? What's
Yeah.
going on? It's all the friends that live out of state.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got to meet them all. And it's like, cool, like we can do this.
Yeah.
And everybody's given the blessing where
Yeah.
it's like, we're good.
Yeah. And people were around us and watching. And obviously people will be like, I've known Chrissy 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever that looks like, right? Like I've known her forever. I don't know you, but I
Yeah.
trust Chrissy. Like that was a big thing.
Right.
And people also saying like, which I think was one of the best compliments when Rochelle was like, I just like who Chrissy is around him.
Yeah. It was that Jen and Jared's
Yeah.
house. Yep.
And then that's also what Jen would say. And that would be the feedback is like, I like who Chrissy is around him. And so I'm good. I'm
Right.
good with it because I see how she is.
I think Trish has the best.
She does. Yeah, because she stayed here like 3-4 times
Yeah.
over this whole time. So yeah, so I think obviously in that, but going back to what you were saying in like holding space, but the reason that you don't even have to say anything is because you're grounded and you're centered. And so it's like, I'm just borrowing your whole nervous system. Like
I
genuinely.
laughed at that word, and I think we got past it till now. Because this is how it all started with nervous system, is talking about stuff.
It's true. It's true. So like, it's real. So, but really, because I can feel that you're present with me, and I can feel that you are grounded and rooted and strong, and that I can depend on that. And your energy is not chaotic, and your energy isn't uncertain, and your energy isn't like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so
It's
even,
weird because I feel that inside sometimes where I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, it is a lot.
I'm like, God, do I just shut up? What I do to God help me, please.
Yeah.
Like I feel that internally, but I'm glad
Yeah.
that it's like
Yeah.
masked where
Yeah.
you can.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but there are times you do say things
Yeah.
that is helpful and encouraging and supportive, especially when I'll be going down and I'll be going down fast.
Or it just ends up like this in
That's
laughter.
true. That too. So, I mean,
Rick
there's,
sheet.
yeah, there's like a lot of that, which is also why I was like, man, we love to laugh. Even sometimes it's inappropriate.
Facts.
But it's so healing at the same time. And I think it's like we were doing our family values and we talked about like life is too serious. And like,
Yeah.
hello, we've both been through losses and tragedies and traumas. And then this is like the worst thing ever. And in the middle of it, like I'm having the worst loss and heartbreak of my life, but then also being healed.
Yeah.
And falling in love with you at the same time. And I'm like, I don't think there's any better example of duality than this. Like,
Right.
how do you be like, I literally don't know if I want to live anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I'm going to go on without my son. Genuinely. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this and F this.
Yeah.
F this S.
See?
Oh my gosh. So to like, oh my gosh, like God has answered a prayer because I had been like praying for you and believing. And I also was like, I'm good. I was married 20 years. I did femininity and the wife thing. And, like I did it all.
Yeah.
And it don't always end well, even if you do all the things. And so for me, I was like, but then God's like, oh, cool. Where's that in the Bible? Because last I checked, like
Yeah.
you're supposed to like be married and
Yep.
be fruitful and do all things. So I was like, oh, okay. So and then I'm like, okay, but if that's true, then this is the only way this is
He's got to
happening.
be XYZ.
Yeah, he's got to change my whole life. And he's got to be the sun, the moon, the stars, and the whole flat earth. Okay. So it's got to be, it's got to be all the things.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's where I was like, oh,
Now
okay,
that you mentioned flat Earth, we talked about that too.
we did. Yeah.
That was one of your
It's a
like,
green flag.
yeah.
So, but I think even in that, like obviously building a relationship, and we've been married now for 2 months. We've been
Yes.
together for 8 months. Like together.
Officially from asking you.
Yeah. Yes, from asking me. Which one of my favorite things about that moment is that you were so clear with your intentions.
Yeah.
Which is so attractive and safe and made me feel like, especially because with loss, there's so much uncertainty
Right.
and there's so much like, and I still feel that sometimes, and you know that because I
Oh, for
tell you
sure.
that there's so many days that I feel like the next bad thing is going to happen.
Yeah.
And this, and obviously from past experiences to current experiences. And so that still is a struggle for me that
Yeah.
I don't really trust life. And I don't really trust these.
Garden hose.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of uncertainty, but obviously with God, like that's the only certain thing is Jesus and
Yeah.
is his word. And nothing tomorrow is not promise.
Right.
And things can happen. But I was like, this and you are worth that risk.
No.
And you're worth that.
And I'm very grateful that you took that risk every single day, knowing that. And I don't take it for granted. Not once. Because I am so in love with it.
And I'm so in love with you. So with that, we're building a friendship. We're building this relationship, which, and people will be like, we don't believe you. Baby, how many fights have we ever been in since day one?
Big fat goose egg of the zero.
Yeah, not one.
No.
Not one. And I think we'll do a whole episode on that, like the difference between hard conversations.
Yeah, because we had a whole conversation this morning that we could have a podcast on,
True.
on all this.
Yeah. So like we have hard conversations, but we don't have fights.
Correct.
And so there's a difference. And so I think that's a whole conversation that we can have, but that's like our connection and our polarity and the grace of God truly on us. And I also sometimes joke about it inappropriately that it's like, I think that God is just, there's grace and love and depth here. Cause he's like, okay, the rest of your life, dumpster fire.
Straight
Okay.
dumpster fire.
You got stuff happening left and right, up and down. Let's just give you this to enjoy. And at least this is solid and stable, which the thing is, I think it's everything because of this being so healthy and so amazing, it makes the dumpster fires feel like they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like we got it.
Oh, for sure. We together, and as like we said, as long as we stay connected,
yeah,
we'll get through anything together.
And we have, and we are.
Yeah.
Truly.
On a daily.
Yeah. And so, but I think even on our journey, a lot of the questions are, people are like, oh my gosh, one, we both were divorced and been through unbiblical situations and marriages and hurts, and there's trauma from that, which we did our work and got therapy, and everybody knows how much I talk about EMDR and somatic and Jesus and all that. And then there's this added to that, right? But it's like we've been in process, but people ask a lot about, like, especially for you, like, how did you pursue and go forward in the middle of all of that? Like, how would you choose to propose to me and get married? And obviously I chose it too, but like you led in those things. How did you do that and know to do that in the middle of the worst thing ever?
By the grace of God, just as we said earlier, like for me, there wasn't anything in my mind or my heart of like timing wise, like there's gurus out there. There's just all these people that talk about dating, and obviously we both date to marry.
Yeah.
And we've had those conversations,
Yeah.
But I think this is going to lend to one of the dating questions, like how we dated.
Yes.
But we
didn't.
didn't.
Yeah.
We really sat here
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The amount of time
in the
sat at,
pool
yes.
and just talked.
And not having sex,
Yeah.
by the way. So let's
Yes.
just say that.
Yeah, that too. We really built a foundation in that friendship.
Yeah,
And I think that's the most important part.
for sure.
And a biblical friendship and a
Mhm.
biblical relationship through that.
Yeah.
Because we'd send scripture back and forth,
Mhm.
living through different households, sending different devotionals of what we're reading for the
Mm.
day and everything else.
Yeah.
Really built that.
Yeah. And going to church together and prayer together and
Well,
well,
hold on. No, let's go back
okay.
because was it that first weekend that you went to church?
No. It was I had already gone a couple times. It was one of the first though.
Because it was Tuesday. It wasn't that same week.
No.
It was the following week after.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Saturday night we're talking and you're like, "Oh, you gonna go to the other church again?"
Mhm.
Because they had an earlier service. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm probably gonna go there again."
Mhm.
And we had talked about the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. We had a
And
really
I
good
don't
conversation.
the church I went to was phenomenal. The word is great there.
Yeah.
But when we talked about the Holy Spirit,
Yeah.
they convicted me that it wasn't spirit filled for me.
Yeah.
So I had to go back to, can we say the churches? Like I don't want to put anything down. I don't want to like
It's hard.
so then
The other churches
Yeah.
say that.
so then the next morning
Yeah.
I get up to go at 8:30
Yeah.
and I was like, man, I don't need to be there.
Mm.
The Holy Spirit convicted me.
Yeah.
End up at the other church.
Yeah. Where
Sitting-
I was at
No,
and Trish was here.
sitting in my normal seat.
Yeah.
And we had talked, you were going back into coming in a special way to where
Yeah.
nobody, and I see you come in and I was like, cool.
Mhm.
And then fast forward to the end of service.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I see you pulling out from the back parking lot and I was like, oh, I gotta hurry up. Catch up. I'm behind her at the light.
Yeah.
Get all the way, get on the freeway.
Yeah.
And then I pull up next to her just staring.
Yeah.
And you finally look over and you're like, hold on. Like,
I was like,
what are you doing here?
yeah.
And so then we got to talking and I was like, after that,
Yeah.
I pulled off and everything and we talked and she was like, what, why are you over here?
Yeah.
Like the church you were supposed to go to is not over on this
Yeah.
side of town. Like what's going on?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, the Holy Spirit convicted me. Definitely what we talked about was true.
Yeah.
And I ended back there and that's where we go.
Mhm. I'll be going there
Every-
all the things together.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing.
It has been.
Yeah. And going back to that, it's funny because when you got baptized, that's where I sit.
Yeah.
And
Which another time,
Yeah.
I think it was you. We don't know for sure, but I think it
Yeah.
was you where I got baptized and I went and sat down where they reserved the seats for you.
Mhm.
And there was you and another gentleman that both turned around and said, welcome home. Or,
Yeah.
congratulations. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny because it's like that's where we sit
Yeah.
now, So, and that's the funny part about it is that we lived 4 blocks from each other, worked out at the same gym, like so many cross situations that
Yeah.
God was just like, not yet, not yet, not yet,
Here
not
you
yet,
go.
not yet.
Yeah.
We're gonna wait for the tragedy. Literally, Jesus. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, like, honestly,
Yeah.
and that's the other part where I feel like as much as I have questions about life and things and sovereignty and God and how all this works more than ever, I still know that he's good. I still know that he's got it, though I don't like it or understand it. But even with us and timing, and even in that, I'm like, wow, God's going to do what he's going to do, because we could have met 1,000 ways, 1,000 times.
Right.
And also, one of my best friends lived on the same street as you, too. And we'd be walking the same neighborhood.
Well, not only that, and then I walked that dog that I told you
on
down
the
this
path, I
path.
walked my dog.
Yeah.
So there's just like so many things that could have happened. So for me, I believe in God's timing and God making things happen in his time more than ever because of that.
Oh, for sure.
That it's like he really does know.
Yeah.
And his timing is perfect.
But yeah.
As much as I in those months leading up to that, which I'm just like in La La Land leading into summer 2023. Just like, it's about to be the best summer of my life. Just finished 2,000 EMDR sessions. I am healed and whole and ready to take on the world. And the husband is coming, and he did. But anyways, so I was delusional, obviously. Full of hope, just full of hope. So, but in that, I think we can look at that and be like, that's crazy that our paths never crossed. But then it's not, because it was God, and it would not have been well.
Right.
If we would have met, like you said, you were like, you wouldn't have been into me at
No.
that time. You would have been like, red flag, no.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
So there's that,
Yeah.
so it's like, I don't know. I just would love to say to anybody single listening to keep doing the work, to keep praying, to keep showing up, to keep believing,
Yes.
because you just don't know.
That, and when you do date, ask the hard questions.
Yes.
Don't waste your time. Ask the hard questions, no matter how awkward they are. Ask those questions, please.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be into it. Like the story you told me yesterday.
Yeah.
However long they've been together, and finding out that this person doesn't want to have kids, and that's something that they want. Like, ask the hard questions initially.
Yeah, like you did.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't want to waste my time. I'm not here to waste anybody else's time.
Totally.
We have to have those
And I was like, you really not going to be with me about this?
Yes.
No, obviously I felt the same way you did, but still, I just was like so curious, like, wow, dang.
Yeah, I got into my values and what I wanted, and I was going to stick to that. That's something that,
for sure,
something that I felt couldn't be broken for me. It's not like it was an extreme standard.
No,
it's just something that I want. And
for sure.
So.
Yeah. And so that's the other thing is, like, for us, especially having those hard conversations, which aren't arguments or fights, but they're not fun.
No,
they're not always easy. Do you feel like, though, they get easier?
Yeah, a little.
That's another episode. Let's have a whole episode about hard conversations.
Yeah, and we've had some.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they've been, I think the way you approach it initially, for me, I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Like, because there's times even without it being me or anything else, like you still approach it, and I'm like, dang it, like, what did I do?
Yeah, like it raises anxiety for you.
For sure. But has it gotten easier? Yeah. Just not obviously to the extent where it's like, okay, I didn't do anything. Like, it's even like, I was a police officer.
Yeah.
And a police officer comes behind me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't do anything. I know I didn't do anything. Like, I'm still worried about it.
Yeah.
Like, so it just that natural, I think, anxiety that just stirs up in you.
I don't think it gets easier, but I know for me, especially when I'm like, I need to talk to you about something.
Yeah.
I think, because remember how much anxiety I would have to talk to you?
Yeah.
I think that's got better for me.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't like it, and I
For
still
sure.
do get a little bit like, oh, but whereas before, because I wasn't sure how you were going to respond, and I wasn't sure if we would keep our love on, as Danny Silk says, and we would stay connected and really make sure that the conversation ends in connection, understanding, repair, and where we're closer after that conversation than before that conversation. And so I had a lot of anxiety around like not knowing
For sure.
what would happen when I told you how I was feeling, or something on my mind, or whatever that was. And so I was like, oh my gosh, so, and then we always say, like, it's not just about what you share, but it's how you share it.
Yeah. And from day one, we've always said we need to share well.
Yeah. So,
Because you may not have the words.
Yeah.
When you may internally feel completely pissed, frustrated, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But as long as you share well, I think no matter what, it ends in connection.
It's true.
By sharing well from both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
which that's a whole nother conversation for another day, but I know